He has been with Unilever for over 30 years, a homegrown talent who previously served as country director of Unilever Cambodia and Laos before coming home to the Philippines. Early this year, he was appointed chairman and CEO and remains head of customer development. With us for more on thought leaders, please welcome Freddy Ong. Good to have you with us, Freddy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Cathy. Good day to you, and thanks for the invitation. Yeah.
And
nice to being here.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah. It's been what, like a good 8 months?
Yeah, close to 8 months, yeah.
And for a dual role, not just for chairman and CEO, but for the customer development piece.
Yes.
How's it going so far?
I think it's truly a challenging but exciting journey that I have, right? First, on the performance side of the business, this to me comes naturally because I was appointed, early on this year, but I've been with the company, as you said, right, the last 30 years. So doing the daily rigor of delivering business performance has always been there. I think the new challenge for me will be the grow right part of the business. So there's a grow fast, but there's a grow right part of the business.
What's the difference between grow right and grow fast?
Okay, the grow fast
would be happening at the same time?
Yeah, it should be. So when you say grow fast, it's all about the daily rigors, right? The business performance of the company. But the grow right specifically talks about our statutory and fiduciary responsibilities, to drive the business forward. It's all about talent management. It's about, the governance of the company, business integrity, safety, well-being of people. And lastly, it's continuously building the reputation of Unilever in its ecosystem. So that's what I mean when I say grow right part of the business.
Talk to us about talent management, because you're just not chairman and CEO. You held on to the role that you had previous to the appointment, which is the customer development barkadahan, or team as we speak.
Yeah.
Well, what sort of value do you think the chairmanship position would have to continuing to take care of that important portion of distribution and category growth for the business?
Yeah, so I did mention to you that, to me, one part of the business of grow fast has been, kind of, the natural things that I've been doing the past 30 years, right? And as chairman, or whether as head of CD, that is something that you continue to do, right? To deliver the results as expected by shareholders and, of course, the global office. Now, in the area of talent management, I think what sets it apart will be our ability to be able to attract local talents within our ecosystem. So when I say local talents, 97% of the job opportunities are all here in the Philippines. So we should be able to make sure that we provide the right capability building, right management tools for people to succeed in their local responsibilities. In the area of CD specifically, we wanted to promote, diversity, because, gone are the days when you say customer development is for male, right? So we try to make sure that we promote, equity, diversity, and inclusion in our CD organization. And, for us to be able to do that, we have to make sure that we provide the right number one, have the right policies. Number two, right working space environment for people to thrive. Right. Example would be women, right, in CD. Traditionally, you don't see them on field, but now we have a lot. So it requires us to change some policies, work from home arrangement for one, right, supports that one, because there will be times where they will be needed to do some domestic, responsibilities for the family. With work from home, it allows them to deliver business results at the same time attend to their family. So maybe that's one example that I could give, yeah.
Customer development, when they see you, do they still see you as the head of the barkada, or do they now or have gotten used to seeing you as the big boss of Unilever Philippines?
It's not for me to answer, but I'd like to believe it's still both, right? Because it comes with the title, so I need to be the head of customer development, but also the head of country of Philippines. Yeah.
So would you say that your presence there still carried on? I mean, it didn't change? The day-to-day operations, your visibility, how has it been different for you now that you just are not just customer development, but also CEO and chairman?
I think number one, the attention to customer remains to be there. So we've been asked to be more customer focused, right? Ever since, I started this journey being in CD all the way to the current role. A customer focused mindset has always been there. It's really anticipating the needs of customers and consumers now and the future to be able to provide the right product and shopping experience. Number two, I think it's for me to be able to connect, right, with the different business units. I have to mention this. In 2022, we divided our business into 5 business groups. We have ice cream, we have nutrition, we have home care, personal care, beauty and well-being. The purpose of which is for us to be able to become more category-centric, drive simplicity, and also drive accountability to the business. So we let the business units really own the different categories that they handle. So my role there is to a bridge, right, between customer, consumer, and with the business units.
You've taken over the role of Benji Yap, the Homegrown chairman and CEO. First time I met him was in 2017 in the office.
Yeah.
And right now he's flown to Jakarta to man up the Unilever Indonesia portfolio. May mga habilin ba siya sa'yo before he left? Any parting words from a fellow colleague whom you've literally grown up with in Unilever Philippines?
So I think one would be empathy to our employees, right, to our coworkers. I think he is the type of leader who really understands, our employees. So he would always tell me to make sure that I'm sensitive, right, to people's need, to people's want, right, to their career ambitions as well. So it's a matter of listening to them and making sure that you connect well, right? Because as you connect well with these people, they would see that you really care for them. They feel valued. They feel supported, right? And that will allow them to own the business as if it is their own. And, I have this saying, I like this saying that, as you build people, people can build a business for you. And I think that's what we're trying to do, right? As we continue to connect with employees, co-employees, you're actually encouraging them, to deliver the business results on your behalf. Yeah.
May pabaon ka ba sa kanya before he left? Considering that you already had the purview of Cambodia and Laos as the head of those markets, jurisdictions, before you came home for good.
I think in terms of GM responsibilities, Benji will be ahead. Right? He's been GM for quite some time and handling a big business, right, in the Philippines, now in Indonesia. But specific, I think, in the customer development side, we still do connect regularly. Yeah, he would throw ideas, bounce off ideas and ask for my views. And that's something that I regularly do because it engages. It allows me to engage with a person like him, and hopefully I was able to contribute to his current responsibility in Indonesia. Yeah.
And for sure that continues because it's the Southeast Asian space with the homegrown talents from the Philippines going global or going regional.
Yes.
And that is a sort of a relationship you have with each other. I'm just wondering, what does it take to be a homegrown talent, given that you get the opportunity to do a lot of travel, maybe even get based in different jurisdictions, but of course also fall into that trap of uprooting, of getting distance of sorts with family. I mean, it all comes in one package, both an opportunity and a cost, being a global talent.
Yeah, so let me start off with my humble beginnings in Unilever. So I started actually as a contract worker in Unilever Philippines. I am a ComSci grad from LaSalle. I was about to embark on a career in the tech side of the industry. And then a call came from Unilever at that time, and they asked me if I want to take a 5-month job. At that time, I don't have a passport. I was supposed to go outside the country. So I said, whilst waiting for that opportunity, why don't I just take this job? Anyway, it's very connected to my roots, right? Where we have our own groceries before, our own grocery before. So when I took on that role, 5 months, after 5 months, they suddenly offered me a permanent role. And I feel that I did mention that there's synergy to my background in grocery. And as I continued to engage with the company, I became more interested with its operations. And eventually, I discovered also the values of Unilever Philippines, and I feel it's somehow connected to my own personal values. And I think that's where the connection happened. And I started, I agreed to join Unilever Philippines. And from my humble beginnings, in logistics, I moved on to sales, move on to a different local company, and then moving on to to two countries outside the Philippines and to where I am right now. Now, experience-wise, I think that the reason why I stayed for more than 30 years here in Unilever, I think number one, I did say it's about the values, right? And then number two, it's the experiences that you gain. And that's something I want to share with, the young ones, right? Try to make sure that you widen, go for the breadth of experience rather than depth of experience early on into your career, right? Try to understand the whole value chain end to end, understand customer development, marketing, finance, supply chain, before you decide, where you want to deepen in terms of your career track. So that's one advice I could give them. And, relating it to my experiences, I've said I move around to many functions, from logistics, even within customer development, there are a lot of roles there. And then assuming an XCOM role in Selecta, which is one of our joint venture companies, right, and moving to another country. So I guess throughout my career, there will always be, opportunity that would arise every now and then, and that kept me glued to the company, and that's the reason why I'm still here.
But the uprooting part, the cost of that opportunity, the family has to move around with you, or maybe you'd have to come back and forth. When you consider that there's a lot of women and in leadership roles in Unilever, are they as willing to get uprooted and get moved to somewhere else for a better opportunity before they come back home for good?
Okay, in Unilever, we have what we call the share your own adventures. So you are accountable for your career growth. So you have to be clear on which roles, right, and you want to be in the next 5 years or so. And with that, you will have an agreement with your line manager on capabilities that you need to build, roles that you need to take for you to be able to achieve that role that you want in 5 years' time. So I guess moving out, let's say, of the Philippines will be an agreement between the line manager and you. If you feel that you have that capability and you're willing to take that role, then we allow people to go through that route. And it's not a difficult conversation because it came from the person itself, right? Because you have a clear career goal in mind, and you know that, example, moving out of the country is something that you need to take for you to be able to achieve the role you wanted 5 years from now. It becomes moot and academic. It becomes easy for people to say, I really wanted to move to another country, uproot my family. I guess that's the defining part in why people would agree to move out of the country, especially at the expense maybe of, leaving your family members behind.
From the perspective of nation building, one would like to think that there is the reverse brain drain, if you will. Does that program have a certainty as to when that certain leadership role will come back to the Philippines?
So we usually have a 3-year contract, right, for people to move out of the Philippines, but it can be extended. It really depends on the working conditions in the country where you're based with, right, based in, and of course the availability of roles here in the Philippines. So I wouldn't say it's brain drain because there are a lot of upcoming talents that we also have here in the Philippines. I think that's one of our core values, to continue to be pioneering in terms of skill set development and, trying to make sure that people can really move up in the organization. So whenever we send people out, it's actually giving opportunities for the young ones to come in, right, the new generation, and have that opportunity to lead the company.
So what learnings have you gained in Cambodia and Laos, for instance, that you're now able to execute in your role as chairman and CEO? Just looking back to those days when you were overseas, different markets altogether, but in terms of execution, how are you doing it in the Philippines?
Okay, maybe, 3 things come to mind. First would be the adaptability quotient, if there's such a word, okay, adaptability quotient, and then I'll explain later why. The second one is, the customer mindset. And then the third one, I think, which is the most important, is the ability to connect. Okay, so I'll go first with adaptability, right? You come into a country, you don't know anything about the business. Our previous boss will always tell us, expatriation, going outside the Philippines, it's not only to build your technical knowledge, it's actually to build the other parts of grooming you to become a leader, right? So it's all about the soft side of things. So the adaptability quotient went up in the sense that I am able to maneuver, right? Be agile as much as possible based on what I learn and what I see in the country where I am in. So I guess that's the first part. The second part is the being customer and consumer, having that customer mindset. I don't know the country, I don't know the consumer insights, I don't know the behaviors of people there. So I have to immerse myself to really understand the culture, right? To be able to connect the data to the habits, behaviors that you see, right? From there you come up with insights and then actions. I think that's what I learned when I went to Cambodia, right? Trying to undo what I know and try to come in with a clean slate and understand who the consumers are. And then the third one I did mention, it's about the social connection. Whenever you lead a team, it's very important that you develop that connection in the sense that they would feel that they are valued, that you really care for them. There's this saying that, a leader touches the heart first before you can ask for the hand. And I think that's something that I learned, right? Where I don't come in there as a savior, but I have my pure intentions of really helping out, building local talents, giving them the opportunity to shine. And I'm proud to say that, after I left Cambodia and Laos, we have local leaders running the business already. So that's something I could be proud of. Now, relating it to my current role, right? I did say adaptability quotient. With the advancement of technology, it's so difficult to say what's going to happen, right? Uncertainty is there. So what you need to do is just to make sure that you embrace uncertainties, right? And be agile as much as possible. Adapt, to the current situations and come up with creative solutions, right? To be able to serve your consumers and customers or shoppers. So that's the first part. The second part is the customer mindset. What I learned there is to understand the consumers there, but here, it's not only learning and understanding about consumers and customers now, but also in the future. You have to anticipate, right, how the Gen Zs, Gen Alphas will behave, in the next few years. You have to understand with the introduction of technology, how will it impact the retail industry? And with that, you should be able to come up with programs to equip you to be relevant in the future. And then the last one, which I said, social connections. I really believe that leaders right now, you should not be a controller. You should be someone who will be able to connect with people, right? Develop relationship. And there's no such thing as you know everything during this time. Unlike maybe 20, 30 years ago, I could say, I know everything. Now, I cannot say I know that. So my role is to make sure that I connect people to opportunities so that there's opportunity to collaborate. So I guess those are the three things that I learned from my Cambodia Laos stint, which I'm applying right now here in the Philippines.
The technology change, you mentioned a very big piece in the challenge portion. So is inflation. And we're not immune. Unilever globally faced this as the biggest challenge, inflation, having to price products well, given the rise in prices of raw materials, for instance. But how did we do here in Unilever Philippines? And how are we going about it as the year progresses in 2024?
Yeah. For me to be able to understand that, we have to understand how shoppers are behaving right now, post-pandemic and during this inflationary period. I would summarize it into three. First is value for time. Second, value for effort. And then value for money. Value for time, post-pandemic, speed, convenience, became the new currencies. It gave rise to super apps, and that's the reason why you're seeing now the different delivery platform as an example, right, that continues to grow. So that's the first change that I see. The second one is the value for effort. And when I say value for effort, it's you going to a store with all possible product portfolio that you'll be needing. It should be a one-stop shopping for you, and it should be closer to home or closer to workplace. This is where you now see the rise of convenience stores, mini marts, even sari-sari stores. In case you're not aware, sari-sari stores continue to grow. You know, from 900,000, 1.1 million, 1.2, 1.3, now it's close to 1.4 million sari-sari stores. You also see the growth of neighborhood stores, neighborhood groceries, neighborhood supermarket. So it only emphasizes the point that people would want to go to one-stop shopping nearer to home or nearer to workplace. So that's from the retail channel perspective. And then the last one I did say, value for money. Inflation is supposed to, ease up, second half this year. Though I know in July it went up a bit, right? Commodity prices remain to be high. And you would see now consumers moving to different brands, seeking more value. And when I say value, it's not only about the price, right? When, we have a line manager before who would always tell us value is quality of the product plus proposition over price, right? That's how you define value. So yes, it's important that you have the right price point, but you have to make sure that whatever value you're giving to consumer, it's more than the price that they're paying for. So those are the three elements and the three consumer changes that we're seeing right now. So with that, how do we address it? Number one, there's still two sets of consumers that we see here in the Philippines. One will be those with higher disposable income, and one will be those, the broad population here in the Philippines. And that's where we mostly cater, but we also have portfolio here. So for those with higher disposable income, we see luxury, we see beauty items continue to grow. So we have to have portfolio innovations that would be relevant to them for us to grow. And when I say innovation, believe it or not, especially for beauty, innovation churn is just 2 years. You have to have ideas, great ideas every year to make sure that you'll be able to anticipate, right, their future demands. So that's the first part of it. The second part will be the broad CSD, right? So it is important that we continue to promote our core business, that cater to their daily needs. And when I say we continue to build the core, we have to make sure that our products are available, at the right price, right time, right place, and making sure that we try to minimize price increases so that accessibility to these branded goods will still be there.
Do you think you'd be able to minimize price increases this year, given that the Bangko Central's cut rates, 4.4%, yes, for the last inflation report, higher than the range forecast by the Bangko Central. It is expecting a couple more rate cuts before the end of the year. What impact do you think this might have on consumer behavior, given that there's more money running into the system, and you as a manufacturer, given that you have these input costs? Does it make it any easier for the business?
Definitely yes, right? Especially if food prices will start to go down, then it will benefit other parts of the business. Because right now, I did mention that there's a luxury part of the business, beauty, and there will be staple. And I think someone mentioned that as well. If you look at the growth rates, the staple part of the business used to be closer to 5 to 7%. This year, it's only at 2.9 to 3%. So it's lagging behind. Why? People are consolidating their purchases. They're trying to do trade-offs at the expense of food, right? As food continues to increase prices, you have to squeeze some of your, disposable income to staple in the staple category, right? On the other hand, the luxury and beauty items continue to grow. Someone mentioned that it's close to 7%. So you would see the disparity, right? Staple, 2.9 to 3%, luxury at 7%. So it's important for us now to make sure, if we do see prices of food go down, then it allows consumers to have higher disposable income to consume, right, the products that they used to consume. And with that, it helps the whole ecosystem because it allows more jobs to be created. It allows, different partners in our ecosystem, right, our value chain providers, partners, to have more businesses with us.
So does that mean a sort of a wait and see from your end, both as a distributor of products and products that you manufacture, given that You have two categories, one in the higher end, and which would presumably give you more power to raise prices rather than as against more of the mass market.
Yeah. So I'm not an economist. What I do is plain and simple. We just have to have plans and and make sure that, you know, so we try to control what we can control. So we just have to have plans, you know, if you will go to scenario A, scenario B, scenario C. So that's what we do. We plan ahead, and as things happen, then we activate the plans that we have. So that's how I'll answer it.
So safe to say, no price increases at this point.
I cannot commit, but there are plans in place, but I cannot divulge it right now. Yeah.
But you are a manufacturer, and those input costs, I mean, a lot to play around and, of course, optimize, if you will. You have two manufacturing plants, something that hadn't been there before, pre-pandemic even. What sort of a leverage does this give Unilever Philippines then in trying to control costs and keeping at your optimum best so that you keep your margins?
I will answer two ways. You know, people talk about cost, but I also look at it at our potential to grow the business. So we believe in having resilient local value chain. In case you're not aware, Unilever Philippines, most of our portfolio are produced here in the Philippines.
About 90%
Yeah,
last time I checked.
yes,
Is
about-
that a figure that you won't be moving? I mean, one would think that, when are you going to go to 100%?
Okay,
Or
so
is that the sweet spot, at 90%?
I think 90% is a sweet spot.
Why is that
There
the
are
case?
there are other portfolio in our range that would require certain level of technology, and we don't have here in the Philippines. But I think what's more important is to focus on the 90% that we have here. And you did mention, I did mention that we believe in resiliency in our value chain. So we don't look at it we don't look at optimizing costs alone, but making sure that we have an agile supply chain that will be able to adapt, right, to the ever-changing needs here. And with the local production, it allows us that flexibility. And with that, you know, it gives us some level of leverage in terms of delivering more top line. That's how I would answer it. And then, of course, cost will always be part of it. And we, you know, outside having those two manufacturing plants, we are now into digital transformation within our factory. We are also trying to do upskilling, reskilling to make sure we support World Economic Forum's, you know, industry 4.0 demand. So that's basically what we do right now. Yeah.
What's going on in the factory floor right now? Because there's a lot of conversation around generative AI taking away jobs. Have we lost jobs in the factory floors in both manufacturing plants?
No, I cannot say that we really lost jobs because, you know, as you continue to introduce technology, different skill sets will be needed to man the business, right? So take the case of, you know, as I did say that upskilling, reskilling becomes important because there are new technologies being introduced in our plant. We have what we call the programmable logic control that runs the whole factory. And with that, it requires different skill set. And it's not about cutting jobs, but moving them, right, to the right skill space for them to be able to run the business. Because the business continues to grow and you would continue to have people in the plant to man the manufacturing site. Yeah.
So you hadn't taken away any job, you just moved them around in the factory floor where they were most useful and where AI can support them best.
Yeah. So yes, I think that's the right way of saying it. And as I've said, it's all about upskilling, reskilling, right, our people to make sure that they will be relevant in the next generation of, you know, manufacturing facilities. Yeah.
Could you picture for us a perfect maybe output of generative AI on how you get that product boxed in, distributed? What's the factory assembly line like? And what is the human intervention in that whole assembly line?
So there are a lot of initiatives here. I cannot share all the details right now, but there are a lot of initiatives there that is intended to drive productivity of our manufacturing sites. Maybe as we continue to scale it up, then I'll find the right venue to share it with you. Yeah.
There's also leadership change globally. As we know, it's been about a year that Hayne Schumacher
Yes.
started to get into the role and also change the strategy. Right now, it's focusing on the major brands. So how has Unilever Philippines aligned with that strategy?
Yeah, so our global chairman, CEO Hein, did mention that we are in what we call the Growth Action Plan program. So basically, it covers three things. Number one, it's to step up, and have higher quality growth. Number two, is to drive productivity and simplification. And number three is to drive performance culture in the company. So relating it here in the Philippines, how do we now execute that one? It's making sure that we grow categories here in the Philippines, because it's not only growing our brands, but growing categories, and then we grow competitively.
Beyond the 5 that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so it's about growing the category. So this is where the retailers would come in and support us, because whatever initiatives we have, it's intended to grow their categories. So what do I mean by growing categories and growing competitively? Two things. One is growing core. When I say core, our core business. We have to make sure that our brands are really superior. I think that's the first one. Second, we have to step up on market development. Market development is basically increasing the size of the pie, or what I call growing the category, because as you continue to increase the size of the pie, then all key stakeholders will benefit from it, whether us, retailers, even consumers, because of the scale, even our partner in our value chain will all benefit from it. So that's one, from growing the core. The second one is to step up our innovation. And when I say step up our innovation, it's for us to be a market maker, right? Anticipating future needs, future wants, and coming up with multi-year big bets, as we term it. So I guess that's the first part of it. The second part of it will be how we drive our business sustainably and continue to upskill our own people. Our mission remains to be, to make sure that our vision is to make sure that we become a global leader in sustainability business. And that's something that we continue to do at local level, which I'll share later on. But basically, it's about integrating sustainability in our business performance. I think that's the biggest change that we have. So that's the first one. Then the second one is what I shared a while ago, where we try to upskill people. So what we wanted from our people, they have to be, they have to be the best in marketing. They have to be digital and commercial, leaders in the industry.
To that point, and I'm thinking about the sari-sari stores. I think that makes us really unique, doesn't it? I mean, this does not exist in Southeast Asia. It's something also that powers the business. You mentioned that we grew from just maybe 3 digits, now it's like 1,400. How are you now re-engaging them to achieve the growth action plan?
Yeah, so I did say that sustainability plays a critical role in the growth action plan. And basically, we have 4 sustainability programs. One is in climate, one is in nature, one is in plastics, and then the last one is in livelihood. And this is where the sari-sari stores would come in, because we wanted to grow our business with retail partners, right? We know that sari-sari store is an integral part of Filipinos. They provide livelihood for the families, and more importantly, it's a source of a support structure, right, for this MSMEs, as I would call it, because they try to connect one another, learn from each other. Doon rin nauso yung marites, incidentally. But, they try to connect and make sure that they stay relevant during these times. And then how do we come in? We just have to make sure that we equip them on how to run the business now, but more importantly, introduce new tech, new solutions for them so that they become relevant in the future.
Babalikan ko lang yung marites, but hindi marites. Yung sachet culture na tinatawag, o yung tingi-tingi, that is what environmental activists here in this program tell me is the main cause of the plastic pollution that ends up in our landfills.
Yeah.
How are you approaching that? Because that is a complete mindset change that doesn't just involve the sari-sari store owners, but the producers themselves, like yourself.
So you have to remember that I'm also a consumer, and I have my own kids as well, right? So I'm equally concerned about it. It's attacking it, I think, it's making sure that you have a balanced approach in this discussion on sachets. Whereas you wanted to have branded products available to consumers, you're right, we have to be equally responsible for it. So we have been embarking on a lot of projects. One is to make sure that we have sustainable packaging material. And then the second one is what we call the, collection of, this waste or plastic in the system. So far we've been active on both. Now, I will touch on the collection part of the business where we really engage. We have what we call the Surf Walastic program, where we try to engage with different barangays, and with different retailers to make sure that there's a mechanism for us to collect back all of this plastic waste so that, we'll be accountable to make sure how to, dispose all of this plastic materials.
So you're starting with a detergent brand.
It covers not only detergents, even for shampoo. So we do that. Anything related to plastic, we do that. So as I've said, there are two parts into it. One is to make sure that we have sustainable packaging materials, and there are a lot of things happening there. But more importantly, the now is for us to be able to collect all of this plastic waste so that it doesn't, go to our environment. Yeah.
But I also read that you're committed to collecting and processing more than you sell.
Yes.
How does that happen? And why are you doing this? What's the value in actually doing that?
I did say that sustainability should form part of the business performance, right? So it is making sure that, whatever we sell, we collect. And when you say, how come we can collect more? Because we don't just choose our products. We work with different NGOs. We work, and the Surf Walastic program, and we collect whatever we can collect and bring it out from the environment. So basically, that's what we do, yeah.
Apart from what you've mentioned, the cleaning agents are also an opportunity in this program for renewable and recycled carbon for product formulations. Could you tell us more about that? Has that arrived here in the Philippines, or is it still a global effort?
It's still a global effort, but I could cite some of our initiatives already in the area of climate. You know that we sell ice cream now. We sell ice cream. We have a brand called Selecta. And we do have freezers, deployed with our retail trade partners. So we've been using green freezers for the last 12 to 15 years. In fact, we're way ahead. We're one of the few manufacturers who ventured into green freezers to make sure that we lower our carbon emission. And to a retailer as well, because you require less energy, that would mean less operating costs for you. So that means more profit for a retail
So you've
partners.
given them green freezers in the sari-sari stores?
In the sari-sari stores. Basically, whatever you see in our ecosystem right now are all green freezers.
So it kind of looks the same, except that it's powered by not Freon.
Yeah, not
something
Freon.
else.
Yes. And
what kind of technology is that?
So I'm not privy to the
Okay,
details
no
of the
worries.
technology, but what I can guarantee is that these are green freezers that produces less emission in the environment. Yeah.
I'd want one for the home. That I think that'd be great. Renewable power. I'm wondering how far you've gone to actually just signaling demand for clean energy. We aren't there yet because the ecosystem we're still trying to build in terms of renewable energy, but there is an effort, Unilever, globally towards this end. How far down are we, considering we do have 2 manufacturing plants in Cavite?
So we're proud to say that most of our manufacturing plants are already using renewable energy. That's as far as I could share right now. Yeah, and then
Percentage-wise?
I think
you
it's
have-
almost both manufacturing sites are using renewable energy.
Would that be solar?
Yeah,
or
it's solar.
hydro,
yeah.
a combination?
It's solar. It's solar. Yes. And then I can also say that we're now encouraging our partners in the whole value chain to make sure that we try to have that mindset of using renewable energy. So especially in the transport industry, I think there are discussions right now on how to partner with them for them to have a sustainable business model using green energy.
So it's sort of pakiusap lang ba ngayon, or are we getting down to policy change perhaps? Because that's the only way we can sustainably carry this forward. You want to do partnerships with this kind of great effort in sustainability, you got to make sure that your other partner is also committed to it for the long haul.
Yeah. So I think pakiusap will never work, right? Because, it could be a one-stop solution, but at the end of the day, it may not be sustainable. I think it's coming up with the right business model for them. So we share technologies on how they can come up with a business model that will allow them to run their business and support the requirements of Unilever. So that's how we do it. We share technologies, we share know-how to make sure that they will have their own sustainable business model.
So running trucks and EVs, something like that, just
It's
to
something that
visualize?
we envision to happen. We're not yet there, admittedly, but those are things that we've been working with our different partners in the value chain. Yeah.
What about in the sphere of food security as well as supply chain resilience? We've talked a lot about that, but food supply and food security, what have we done in assuring that there is assured supply as well as reduced emissions? How far down are we in those efforts?
So I'll give one example, okay? Our product Nor, we have what we call Nor Sinigang. So this is in the area of nature, right? Where we said, most of our raw materials should be sustainably sourced. And that's one example I could give. In fact, all of our sampalok requirements are produced here in the Philippines. We source it there. In fact, we probably consume close to 50% of whatever sampalok is produced here in the Philippines. So we're proud to say that we not only support the local farmers, but we make sure that our raw materials are sustainably sourced.
Regenerative, I find this so difficult to say, regenerative
Agriculture,
farming.
yeah.
It's in agriculture, but it's a sustainable way of farming. How far down are we in that sense? Because there's really not any policy to support it right now.
So not here in the Philippines, maybe in other countries, but we're trying to understand and coming up with a model where we could work here in the Philippines. So we're not yet there. So far, our raw materials are sustainably sourced, but we're not yet in that space. But that's something that we're trying out in other countries. Yeah.
Big picture, there's the first climate policy engagement review that Unilever globally had come out with in March. So this is something that's been released. It's really just engaging all the industry associations, which you have done in your own way here in the Philippines. But how do we institutionalize that going forward? What needs to happen here in the Philippines? Is it a policy change, a lobbying of sorts maybe to the houses of Congress to make sure that what Unilever globally is doing is something that can be done here in the Philippines?
Okay, so I'll give you, the generic approach that we have as far as sustainability is concerned. Maybe one example I could give is in the area of livelihood. We have what we call the living wage. And so far we've engaged with different NGOs and with like-minded manufacturers. We sat down and discussed how we could implement this living wage. So living wage is making sure that you provide the right salary structure, right, beyond the minimum wage for people in your whole ecosystem. So we're still at the early stage, but I think what's important is to gather like-minded manufacturers together with NGOs to come to formulate some policies and some sort of partnership so that we'll be able to make it alive here in the Philippines.
Now, there's one other thing that I wanted to ask about the sort of greenwashing that's come up to be a very big topic in the UK and in the US. Reviews on how marketing claims are coming to fore and exposing consumers. What justifications can we then therefore say, after all that we've discussed, strengthen the position of Unilever Philippines as in support of something that's sustainable and real, something that happens on ground?
Okay, so we take this thing seriously. So Unilever will abide to local regulations, even global regulations. I would say that, in fact, we are way, way, way ahead in terms of regulatory requirements. If there will be requirements at this level, we have to make sure that we over-deliver. So it is not, we just have to make sure that we abide with the local regulations and make sure that we provide sustainable business models and products based on regulations approved globally and locally. So that's how, as far as I could share, yeah.
So it's not that we are needing any policy. The policy is there. It's a matter of executing that,
Yeah.
and with the plans that you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap, you're Filipino Chinese, just as Benji is, and as I am, coming from De La Salle University.
Yes.
You have
Lasal.
explained your journey, and it's very interesting coming from a very entrepreneurial family, and now you're in a multinational. What would you say is the best advice that you could give to somebody who is finding himself or herself in that kind of upbringing, where they have an opportunity to work with the family and or go for MNC, the multinational corporation?
Okay, so as I've said, I'll start with my journey, right? We have a family grocery. It's in Blumentritt, Santa Cruz. Until now, it's still
Is
there.
it still open?
Yeah,
Who's
it's still
manning
open.
the job?
It's my aunt who's manning the
Very nice
store
of your
right
aunt
now.
to have
Yeah.
taken over.
Yeah. So
Are all the Unilever products up there on the shelf on a nice?
I
I'm
have to do a
assuming that it's
selling
been-
job to my aunt. That I can guarantee you. So there's no relative as far as business is concerned. But anyway, I think basically, I grew up with some fundamental values that I still carry on from the time, I was manning the grocery to where I am right now. First will be that enterprising called the entrepreneurial spirit. I guess, when you have a business like you would, it's easier for me to treat the business like my own, but that somehow developed the value in me, right? That even when I'm in a corporate world, in a multinational company like Unilever, I will still have that sense of ownership and make sure I treat the money as my own, before I invest, right? So it's all about taking that calculated risk, similar if you have your own business, to be able to seize whatever opportunities there are in the future. That's the first one. The second one, which I have been saying a while ago, is about that customer mindset. My dad would always say, customer's always right, which is kind of what Sam Walton said, right? And how he values customer. He would always go the extra mile to make sure that he would serve our palengke or sari-sari store shoppers in our store. He would carry products to tricycle, to jeepneys, just to help all of this, right? So I guess it's about going that extra mile. And here in Unilever, we try to make sure that we have that customer mindset, right? Bringing the voice of customer and consumer into the organization. And for us to be able to come up with innovations that will address their shopping and product solutions that they're looking for, we embark on a journey where we promote safe working space. In Unilever, it's making, there's a saying that no one comes up with great ideas if you're being chased by a tiger, right? So similarly in the workplace, we just have to make sure that it's a safe space for people to contribute, to come up with great ideas, so that we'll be able, bringing the voice of customer, coming up with solutions, so that we'll be able to provide the right product and shopping
So
solutions.
if it's not a tiger, what's chasing them? What's chasing the employees?
There's no
there?
tiger, nothing in our office.
Money. Well, I wish you well. Thank you so much for this opportunity. You're just at the start of your work, and you said it was both a challenge and it's exciting. I'd like to believe it's the latter. Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Cathy.
much
Thank you for
joining
this
us, Freddy.
opportunity. Yeah, good day.
And catch us again next Thursday at 9 p.m. Philippine Standard Time on One News. You can also check out the long conversation on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. And if you haven't done so yet, follow my social media pages. I'm Cathy Yang. This is Thought Leaders.